Good evening. Good evening, everybody. I hope you are well. It's another week, another episode of the Love Again podcast. It's me, Patrick, and I'm glad to be here with you. Today, I have a very special guest for a few different reasons.
Don't start.
For a few different reasons. She's my friend, my sister. We began that we were just talking about this. I don't remember how we or when we got close.
Yeah, I I
Just,
cannot tell you a timeline.
I don't remember, but it's hey, we here,
Yes.
and apparently we've needed to be in each other's lives these last few years. So I'm glad about that. But she's here, and she has a brand new book.
Yes.
A brand new book, Recover, a Guided Journal to Healing by the one and only Kristen Webster.
I'm so sick of you already.
Welcome. I said it right though.
Yes, you did.
I didn't say
You did. You did.
I didn't call you Kirsten or Christian or all the
Yes,
other
thank you
names
for
that I call
pronouncing it
you
right for
on a
the people.
regular basis.
Yes.
I got it right for this. Kristen
Yes.
Webster. I'm glad. How are you?
I am well. I'm
Yeah.
well.
Good. Well, this is the second episode of the podcast, and so I'm glad that you're here, and you should feel privileged.
Yeah.
You
Thank you. Thank you so
should.
much.
You absolutely should. Absolutely privileged to be here with me talking about you. Yeah,
Thank you, Patrick. I
yeah,
appreciate
that works.
it. So much love. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So before we deep dive into the book, and we welcome everybody. Hey, Lori, all of you all on YouTube and Facebook, everywhere.
Hey, yeah.
Hey, y'all. Um, so I want to know. This is a book, and this is I guess the destination for right now. How did you get here? Like, what was like? Talk to me about a journey, your journey.
Whew. Well, um, getting here has been definitely a a hard space, a very difficult space, a lonely space, but that's how I got here because when I couldn't talk to anyone else, I could talk to my journal.
Mhm.
Um, but then when I would let people in a little bit, they would be like, "Oh, I experienced this. Oh, I experienced this too. Oh, and so um when I got to a space that I wanted to not feel the pains of playing Russian roulette with my heart, um, that's how I got to this part of writing
Mhm.
this guided journal. Because I'm a teacher by trade, an English teacher at that. So, like, I have my students writing all the time, but then I have them in guided writings, and I was like, I think people can use this. I think that there are people who think once you get a degree or you got a certain level of education that you don't have issues, you don't have problems, and that could be no more further than the truth from the truth. And so that's how I got here, and being married and divorced twice.
It's all good.
Yeah. But that's another story because they were very different marriages.
Mhm, mhm.
There are some basic principles of marriage, but then there's your marriage,
Yeah.
and those were two very different marriages.
So I'm interested in because when we talk about divorce, a lot of times we don't talk about what people don't talk about is grief.
Whew, yeah,
Right? That you're experiencing a very personal loss,
yeah,
even when divorce is absolutely necessary.
correct.
And sometimes it absolutely is.
Yeah,
Like, I'm not one of those proponents of marriage that you stay married to the detriment of your life,
yeah,
your children's life, your ultimate well-being. But it is, even when it is necessary, it is a loss. And I'm interested in how did you process the grief of losing um, grief of divorce, losing a marriage?
Um, well, my first marriage, I was young.
Mhm.
Um, I
How
was,
old were you?
huh?
How old were you?
I was 20, 25, 26, 25 or
No,
26.
no, I just asked that because I was married at 22.
Oh, okay.
So when
Yeah.
you say
So
young,
I was,
you have
yeah,
to.
yeah. That's a different kind of
Yeah.
young. Yeah.
That's
My brain was fully developed, but I was still fresh out
Mhm,
of college and I
mhm,
wanted to, he was a great guy, but there were some deal breakers that happened in counseling.
mhm.
Um, we went to premarital counseling for months and
Did the deal breakers come up in the premarital counseling?
yeah, yeah. The deal breaker was I'm not staying in Alabama. And I found
Mhm,
myself stuck in Alabama.
mhm,
And so I was like, yeah, I ain't gonna be able to do this. But then there were some other things too. But that was the biggest part. Like there was no growth there. So I believe that if I if I well, no, I believe that it happened for a reason. Because we're fine, we're friends now, like we're fine.
mhm,
And when people think that they're like, y'all, I'm like, yeah, we're good friends. We can talk. I can talk to him. We can have a conversation. Do I
mhm,
talk often? No. But when something happens or if somebody, God forbid, passes away, we're like, hey, did you hear about? So it's not like we're calling each other, you
mhm,
know, to
mhm,
to just be like, hey, how you doing? Or just checking on you, because a lot of people think, oh, you and your second divorce, oh, are you gonna rebound with? And because a lot of people say that and they jokingly say it, and sometimes I'm like, yo, stop playing with me like that. Like that's not what this is.
mhm,
I'm not rebounding with him. I'm not getting ready to be like, oh, well, it didn't work with him, so let
mhm,
me go back to him. Like, no, I got divorced from him for a reason. I
mhm,
got divorced from him for a reason. I'll be married 100 times
mhm,
before I stay somewhere where I'm being tolerated or where I'm tolerating,
mhm.
instead of being celebrated or celebrating that person.
So, how did you grieve it?
I moved to Tennessee. All by myself,
You
no
just got out
family.
of Dodge. Check him out.
I'm out. I am out. Okay. I moved to Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee, and it was crazy. It was a college professor, and
Mhm,
I was like, I don't necessarily want to work in CPS, and thank God and amen. Sorry, CPS teachers, but he was like, well, go to Tennessee. That's the easiest place, and I was like, Tennessee. I
mhm,
was like, country town. Like I really thought, but Nashville was the best experience, like of my adult being single girl life. Like
mhm,
it was amazing.
mhm,
The only reason why I actually moved back is because I ended up having to, again, I said I didn't have any friends for, well, I gained new friends, but I didn't know anybody there. And
mhm,
I didn't have family there.
mhm,
But I had to have an emergency surgery
mhm,
and my mom had to fly down. I was like, oh, I can't do this. Like if I have to have something
mhm.
going on, I won't be able to do this. So that's why I ended up.
So you moved to Tennessee.
Mhm.
So your way of grieving was to avoid.
At one point,
Okay.
yes,
Okay. All
yes,
right. All right.
avoiding.
And perhaps I'm I try to be specific or kind of parse the difference between healthy grieving and unhealthy grieving.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that getting out of Dodge is unhealthy because sometimes in order for you to heal, you have to remove yourself
From the
from
situation.
that environment, like
Yeah,
everything. Like
yeah,
I need to go and kind of reprogram myself. So I'm not saying that it's unhealthy, but you notice that in you, in order for me to start over, I have to kind of recreate my world as
yeah,
best I can. And that's what you found in
yeah.
Nashville.
And in Tennessee, though, I did do therapy,
Mhm,
and there were moments in Tennessee where, in my therapy sessions, my therapist let me know, like, that was not your husband. That was this, 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 and this, because she really dug deep. And I would call him. This is the part that and it would take everything in me. I was like, why I gotta call him and apologize? But it would be in me to be like, yo, you remember this situation when this happened? I apologize because I really realized that that was me. That wasn't you. Um, I was talking to you crazy. You're grown man. Like it was so much. And there were several of those calls where I realized what I did on my
mhm,
part, where
mhm.
I was like, I'm sorry for that. Like I shouldn't have done that.
So you bring up therapy, and and I'm a big proponent of mental health. And I believe that therapy for me is a sacred devotional act.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what made you open? Because both of us have church backgrounds, and we're going to talk about the church in a minute. But both of us come from deep religious church backgrounds, where therapy isn't normalized,
Mm-hmm.
right? It was take everything to Jesus, basically. That's all.
Right, and leave it there.
And leave it there. How did you think you became open to therapy and saw it as a great utility to help you, mend fences or kind of rediscover yourself?
Being at Alabama State, um, I'll never forget freshman when we were like going through orientation, and they told us that we have a counselor here if you need to talk about something, and I was like, talk about what? Like, what are we talking about? It's like anything going on in your life, blah blah blah. We have a therapist on the campus, or a counselor. They didn't call it a therapist, and so I was like, oh okay. So that was the door that opened for me, and then I just had people around me who was like, yeah, my therapist. I was like, that's normal for you? Like, y'all just go to therapy like that? Because we have a stigma.
Right.
Usually, sometimes, I don't know about your family, but if you go to therapy, you're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to get to the point of, if I don't go to therapy, I'm going to be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm probably one of the first ones in my family to do therapy, like deep therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And after this experience, 2022 is going to be even deeper. Probably. So
got more stuff to talk about. Yeah, just stuff keeps happening, and
stuff just keeps happening.
So you divorced, you move, you're in Nashville, you're in therapy, but you carry with you, and we all carry with us, stigmas and pain points that comes from our religion.
Yes.
Right. We're no good before we get married because all we want to do is have sex. So you have to get married, right?
Right.
Then the marriage is horrible for everybody.
Right.
And then you divorce, and now there's a stigma that's on you. It's not just a single person, because that's one experience as a Christian, but to be a divorced single, to be divorced is a whole nother subset in the church.
Yeah.
And I was getting, sitting in church and you're hearing all this stuff. And I remember getting very, very resentful. Because I had somebody, and that's not just my pastor, but going around, I was traveling a lot at the time, and I'm sitting in church and they talking about divorce, and they're making divorced people feel bad about themselves as if you did something, like you planned this, right?
Oh yeah.
But then my resentment was, I'm sitting there like, ain't this your second or third marriage?
Yeah, maybe fourth.
Right. So I became horribly resentful for people who get up on a high horse, and look down, and you're projecting me the marriage that worked.
Right.
Right. Or you want us to believe is working.
Yeah.
You don't talk about the 2 or 3 that didn't work.
Yeah.
Right.
That part.
Me feeling bad about myself. There are different pressures for men to be married that are different for women to be married when it comes to church. How did the church influence your decision the first time, perhaps, to be married?
Ooh. Oh, I hope they don't see that. Well, maybe I do. Maybe they need to see it. Well, first of all, my first ex-husband was a youth pastor.
Of course he was.
So.
Of course he was.
Of course.
He was the first lady of the youth department. So
oh my God. And would you stop, Patrick, please? So it would be this whole, oh, well, he's preaching, you're singing, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. That's totally fine. But we don't talk about the stuff that goes on in marriage as far as communication, sex. What do you like in it? What do you want to do? Because first of all, the stigma of having sex before marriage was so embedded that I actually waited. I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. It was like I was in my 20s before it even happened. And so it was like when I got married, I was like, I know y'all not gonna make me wait, and this is what I get. Like, we gonna have to. Would you please open your eyes? I'm not saying that was what I'm saying
Your
is
truth is your truth.
it is what I'm saying is that we need to have that deeper conversation.
Sure.
What do you like? How do you like it? And don't fake it. Because we have been taught, oh, if you cook, you clean, you do this, and blah blah blah, and you want me to do all these things.
Yeah.
They got a salary attached to it, and then go to work, and then but you all want to keep the stigma of the old school of, the man is the provider, blah 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 blah. But you want me to come home and be from work and be the maid. You want me to cook and blah. The truth is that even if I was cooking, cleaning, and all that stuff, I had to do that if I lived by myself. But there were some lies to us as women in the church, that if we did those things, we'll get a good husband. We'll keep a good husband, and he won't cheat on you, and he won't do these things. And I'm like, these are lies and deceit. These are lies and deceit. And so having that I had to unlearn some religious stuff. I'll never forget, I was sitting in church. I had come to Chicago, and I was sitting in church, and they were singing and blah blah blah, and they was doing all this stuff that they were doing 20 years prior to that when I was a kid. And I sat there and I was like, I'm going through a divorce, and y'all still doing this, and y'all still talking about just take it to the Lord in prayer. I remember having a full-fledged argument with someone. I was like, I'm not going to my pastor if he's not certified in counseling. I'm just not doing that. I'm going to a professional. And she was like, well, you need to go to the man of God and blah blah blah. Girl, all he gonna give me is his opinion. I need somebody who studied the brain, who knows what's going on. So I think college really did help me with that part.
Sure.
And being away at college, because I had to figure it out. I'm 955 miles away from my family. I can't call them all the time like, hey, can you come in? I had to figure it out. And so I had to unlearn some things. But then I'm in the deep South, where there goes that stigma of, if you do this, if you do this, then you'll have a great marriage. You'll have a great husband. And I'm like, this ain't it.
Yeah. So I'm with you on that. You said so much. There is a myth projected about marriage.
Yeah.
Right. That when you get into it, you find out this ain't what y'all told me it was.
Yeah.
Right. And then it was like, if you do everything right, right? If you avoid sleeping together, blah, 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 whatever that is, then
stick a pin in that one. I'll come back to that.
Right. So then if you do all of that, God's gonna bless your marriage. Right. And whatever that means. There's so much language around the ideas of marriage that never really talk about marriage.
Right.
And so when you get into it and this isn't working, and we're not communicating, and I want you to know that men feel that distance and that disconnection as much as you all do.
Yeah.
We probably don't verbalize it.
Yeah.
We won't say it. And I know some men's attitude has been, well, if it don't bother her, it don't bother me. Right. If she don't bring it up, I'm not going to bring it up. And we could be unhappy and be okay with being unhappy for years.
Yeah.
And she doesn't even know, because we don't necessarily know how to talk about it. So when it comes to marriage, what was one of the essential things that you said, oh, y'all got this wrong about? Y'all didn't tell me. You didn't tell me this. You didn't tell me it was going to be like this.
Well, one of those things as far as boundaries being set.
Mm-hmm.
I knew nothing about boundaries, or I didn't frame it as boundaries. It was just like, I don't want this, and we could do this, but I'm not open to this. But we weren't using these buzzwords like boundaries and, things like that. And so going up front, like, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. This is what I want to do. These are my goals for this marriage.
Mm-hmm.
This is not for me to live off of you. This is for us to grow together as a partnership. And sometimes I think people miss that, like, there shouldn't be, because there was this thing of he's the head, let him make all the decisions. No, if I'm good at finances, I should be making financial decisions. If he's good at getting things done or fixing things, he should do that. But I have my own toolbox, like everything. Like, I knew how to do certain stuff. And so just those boundaries for people. Some people want to be the wife to stay at home. I wasn't that girl.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I need to work and have my own money.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding that just because I'm an independent woman doesn't mean I don't want to have that soft place to lay. I want to be able to come home and let that guard down, let my profession down, let the whole, I don't have to figure it out. I don't want to have to come home and cook all the time. Like, figure it out. Like, what are you going to do? How do you do this? And so many times we have our little girls, with kitchen sets and doing all these different things and learning how to cook. And you need to be in this kitchen. You're going to have a man one day. I remember my grandmother saying that sometime. And I'm like, I need to eat too.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, well, totally from the church's standpoint, marriage is defined by its actions rooted in patriarchy.
yay.
It's the clearest form. And some secularists will say westernized marriage in America was just basically for a man to legally own a woman.
Yep.
And so I think the ideas that we have about marriage, what you're talking about, is more collaborative.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That we collaborate to create the love we want.
Mm-hmm.
We collaborate to create the family we want and all alike. But when it talks about this headship stuff,
yeah,
right, and it reinforces in a man patriarchy that is most times toxic. If we don't address that in ourselves, and let me say this too, there are some women who are horribly fine with patriarchy.
Yeah.
And see the trade-off and the benefits. Like, it has pain points, but this is your role. This is my role.
Yeah.
It's patriarchy, but it works on some level or another.
And that's what I think, like, that role part. Like, that's where I think, because truth be told, some of our grandmothers should have left our grandfathers. Period. But I'm not speaking.
No. I mean, that's absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I never bought this whole idea, well, grandma and grandpa stayed together for 51 years.
Yeah.
And down in the South, you could go 3 miles and have you a whole nother family, because they didn't know. So just because,
or you can be in Chicago.
Yeah, just because they stayed together doesn't mean that it was healthy, doesn't mean that they were happy, doesn't mean that they were loved. First, in the 40s, 50s, it's into the 60s, America didn't even recognize marriage between Black people.
That part.
So if you don't recognize the marriage, then there is no divorce. So they just stayed together.
Yeah. And stay together because it's that you have those benefits, but are you happy? Yeah. Like, and that's what I've learned. Like, who makes my soul happy? Am I making your soul happy?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that with that being said, like, you have to know what makes your soul happy. So part of going back to Tennessee, I found out what made my soul happy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. I knew what I liked. I knew what I didn't like. I knew what I wanted. I would explore Tennessee every weekend and go somewhere by myself. Whether it was morning, noon, and night. That was the promise that I made to myself, that I'm going to love Kristen wholeheartedly. But then I started finding that I was making myself little with my second marriage. Like it was like, okay, let him, there are some major things that we probably would have to do another show about with him. That I didn't want to make him feel less than, but I was like, look, at this point, either you come with the thunder or don't come at all. Like this is where I am. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. And I'm now at a space of like, these were lies. Well, to me, they were lies. Like, because I know how to cook. I was very, in my first marriage, they would probably frown upon. But I was like, let's do fun things with if I'm gonna do these kind of things, like let's go do some dance classes. And then, oh no, we can't do those. Oh no, but we're married, right? So you want him to go to somebody else? Or you want him to cheat on you with you? Like, what we doing here? So there were things that they were just like, oh no, in the South, oh, we can't do pole dances. Like, oh, we can't do those kind of like. I was like, but we're married women. We should be able to do this together. But I get it, getting up announcing in the church like we're doing pole dance classes, But in the marriage ministry, you can say, hey, you said what? You just can't do that. You can't.
Right.
Marriage ministry have a field trip. So
you bring this up, and so let's talk about sex. Right? I think one of the ways in which married Christians are unprepared for marriage is that the church by default teaches us to kind of be disembodied. Right? You're supposed to flee youthful lust and talks about everything is of the flesh
and denying all those things.
It's wrong, and you can't fornicate, you can't masturbate, you can't do any of those things, right? So you basically choke off part of your humanity,
right?
And hopefully it starves to a point where it's controllable, and then you get married, and then you're supposed to turn it on.
Yeah.
And know everything about how my body works, about how her body works. Right. And it's supposed to magically come together, because that's another thing they talked about was somehow this becomes ethereal and sublime because you married now.
Right.
And so it becomes something more than what the world has. And then you get there, and just because it's natural doesn't mean it's easy.
Right.
To understand. And so my point is that you don't teach me how to live into my body.
Right.
And now I'm giving it away. And you told me, because I did not have sex before marriage, that this is supposed to be fulfilling for me. And now it's not. So somebody lied.
It's a whole lie.
Somebody is lying.
Somebody lied. Lies to deceit.
Somebody's lying.
Yeah.
So I can say that from my vantage point, but you as a woman, how did you experience that? You brought it up, so we're talking. No, it's fine. How was that issue for you? How did that? Yeah, how did you?
As far as like being sexually involved, or what do you mean?
Well, apparently it wasn't as smooth. It wasn't as
it's not a smooth transition, and that's not. It's not that it. Not saying it wasn't great, but it was like, this what y'all telling me to wait for? Like, what? See, this is why we can't have conversation. You want me to go live in front of the world?
No, it's fine. Let's do it.
Okay, got it. So, but the thing is that I've seen so many women wait for marriage,
right,
and be virgins when they get married,
right,
and then their husbands out here cheating on them. Like, you wanted me to wait on this?
And I would, let's just say they give you all rules that they don't necessarily.
They don't give y'all. Yeah. They don't give the men those rules.
Right? Because there's a way we could look at it that the father of the bride and the pastor of the bride owns the bride's sex and sexuality.
Yeah.
And it is for them to give away.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I can't have it, I can control it. So y'all better not.
Yeah.
Right. Even with the woman who was caught in the act of adultery, they don't bring him in
at all,
hold him accountable like they held her, because the assumption is that she belongs to him.
Right.
He can do whatever he wants to do. She better not.
Right.
Right. And in their culture, they were getting ready to kill her.
Right.
Right. And so there are ways in which we have to acknowledge that there's some damage that is done to you all even before marriage, that we don't have those kinds of tie-ups.
Yeah, I don't have those. Yeah, you all don't have those at all. And I think it's something that we need to talk about, because they have literally set women down for getting pregnant out of wedlock and
put them out of the church.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, okay, now in my 40s, I'm unapologetic about it. And like, it's just like, look, this is what I like. This is what I don't like. This is not what we're doing. This is what we can do. These are my limits. You know, so and
you didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know any of that.
Right.
I didn't know any of that.
Right.
Because we're not taught to respond to traumas and things like that. So, okay, I'm gonna get a little serious right now. I was talking to a guy, and we were talking about sex, and he was like, yeah, you know, and this is after my second marriage, and divorce. And he was like, yeah, you know, I just like to choke a little bit, you know. I was like, whoa. I said, let me stop you right now. I'm not your person if that's the case, because that's no longer a turn on for me. That is a trauma for me. So we need to address. Now, back in, you know, when
you need to know that, like, those are the things you need to talk.
Yeah, you can't just be like, I'm gonna choke you, girl. No, you can't. I might respond in a totally different way on you, bro. And it is no longer gonna be a pleasant sexual activity. So, it's not going to. When he said it to me, Patrick, like literally, it's not something we haven't even. We were just literally talking. But when he said it, that's when I realized that I'm not ready for a relationship. Because even with me going through therapy and stuff and writing a book and all that stuff, I got some traumas that I don't know unless I'm actually like presented with it at that point. And when he said it, I was like, no, we can't do that. And so then when he kept going, I was like, okay, we ain't gonna work at all, because you're not. There goes those boundaries that we're talking about.
He just talked himself right up.
Yeah, you just talked. You ain't getting not up with you.
Okay, look.
But no, but really, like, women do, because we don't talk about those kind of things, because we do experience traumas. My second marriage was traumatic for me. It was trauma, without going into grave detail, but there was trauma there that I didn't know was it, because some of the things and the responses of how he responded to me, I thought were normal because of narcissism. Like, again, like, you know, we talked about that. Like, I didn't know what that was. It's not talked about to Black girls. Like, this is what you look for. These are red flags. These are not butterflies. You're feeling a response to not go. You are overriding your check engine system.
Yeah. I'm always interested in people who make the decision to marry again.
Yeah, because I'm not interested.
Well, hold on. So I remember I was on the radio. They were doing a singles thing with single men, and it was about 4 or 5 of us. So I'm in the studio. We're doing the show, and they were asking everybody how many times they had been married, and the guy sitting next to me had been married, I think he said 4 times. And I looked at him like, are you nuts?
Right.
Like, I don't, like, how do you fix your mouth and your heart to get married 4 times. And I thought he was an idiot.
Yeah.
And so I left there and I was driving in the car, and perhaps it was my conscience or God. And it was like, well, at least he tried. No. I'm serious because
Yeah.
I'm the guy who burns his hand on the stove
Hmm.
and I never touch the stove again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
I think
that.
I think
Nah, and it takes courage. And what I
yeah.
saw in him was courage I didn't have. Right?
But I believe that trying is failure with honor. Like Steve Harvey said that best. He was like,
Oh, please, we're not gonna post Steve Harvey on
no, I'm saying,
the
but
Love Again podcast.
I don't do Steve Harvey
We
either
will
like
not
that.
quote Steve Harvey.
But what I'm saying is what he said, even though it came from the mouth of someone like Steve Harvey, but I get what he was saying because my ex-husband used to say that, well, at least I'm trying. Are you really?
I'm gonna push back at you.
Okay.
Right? This whole idea that Lord, I'm running trying to make 100, 99 and a half won't do.
Lord Betty.
But sometimes 99 and a half is enough.
It is.
Like 99 and a half is as far away you could get from zero.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So sometimes my trying is not failure. Trying or getting close to where I need to be is great effort.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And even though he could try and it may be unsatisfying to you, what I want is acknowledgement for my trying, because if you don't see that I'm trying,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to quit trying.
Yeah. And I think that's where the narcissistic person comes in, because they never quit trying. And so dealing with that, narcissism is so hard to deal with because it's so complex, because there are so many clusters and, oh, they're an overt, they're a covert, they're all there. And you just be like, wait, who would do this man got narcissistic syndrome, something, whatever.
Well,
and so,
hold on. Because women can be trash too.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
right. No. I'm just saying, like,
oh, yeah. I'm not
men who are narcissistic. I know women who are horribly narcissistic.
Yeah, that's why I said we all have some in our personality, but when it's an everyday thing, when it's always about you and it's always trying to satisfy just your personal self, and you can take from your partner to satisfy you again, then that's where I think the problem comes in. It's just like there is no give and take. They're not concerned really about you and your well-being. It's what do I get out of this?
Yeah.
And I believe that, like, as a partnership, it's just like, okay, yeah, I want you to get out of it, but I want to get out of it too. I want to get the same experience. And so again, I was good for him, second husband. I was good for him, but he wasn't good for me. And because I did have a good.
You know that up front.
You said what?
Did you know that up front? And I ask because sometimes we ignore obvious things.
Yeah, I ignored.
Because there's a trade-off, right?
Yeah.
Like if I ignore this, I can have this. Right?
Yeah.
And whatever this is may be a priority
for
me. So my question is, as we get older, do we willfully look away from something?
Well, as I've gotten older, I'm looking towards it at this point. Like, I'm looking at all red flags because I never want to experience any kind of foolishness like that again. Yeah, I did know. But again, the church in me, or the teachings in me, was when someone's been assigned to you, and if you feel like they've been your assignment, you finish the assignment. And it's just like, oh God, I don't want this. This is trash. Let's start over. I don't want this science project. Let's go somewhere else with this. So there are so many layers to my second marriage that were not in my first marriage. That we would have to dive much deeper, and it'll be a much more serious conversation about loving again, because at this point it's just like, I don't, I have prospects or whatever, but I'm not interested.
Do you still believe in love?
Absolutely. I absolutely believe
Do
in it.
you
I
still believe in
absolutely believe
love for you?
it for me right now. Right now, or like seeing it down in the future. I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
My focus for me is to be very intentional this year, to focus on me, and I don't want to get into that religious space of, if I just bury myself, he'll find me. No, I'm gonna go out and stuff, I hang out, but right now that's not my focus. But I
So,
believe in it. I
yeah.
believe that people can have a healthy relationship. And that's one of the things that I've learned from this marriage, that I want to be able to talk to my spouse and not always have to recover emotionally and mentally and spiritually or financially
Mhm.
after speaking with them or having a conversation with them, or saying, hey, we need to have a conversation. Like I said, like I was telling you earlier, I've learned how to not say, hey, we need to talk, because that's the automatic, I don't want to talk anyway. We're not talking, whatever it is, we're not going to address it today. And so now I'm like, hey, we need to have a heart to heart. I'm changing my language. Um, am I ready to love someone? I gotta feel the vibe of it. Like, at this point, it's about what I'm doing for me and my health and my wealth,
Mhm.
making sure I'm a great mom.
Mhm.
Because having a toddler,
Mhm.
a 2-year-old,
It's a
that takes
thing.
away from me emotionally, because when I have to be on at work, and as soon as I walk in the house, I'm on as mom.
Mhm.
So to add a person to that would be very difficult,
Mhm.
unless they understand and they are allowing me to heal in the places I need to heal, and we have those hard conversations like, yo, this is where I am,
Mhm.
this is what happened, you know um you know I
Well,
have boundaries with
I would like to think, and I may be idealistic about this, but I think that when love is applied to our lives right, it's healing.
hmm
There are ways in which we heal on our own and we recover. I think as
right,
your book helps us to understand that we do recover.
yeah,
I think though that we reclaim a part of our souls
yep,
when we are in relationship
yeah.
with one another, right?
When someone that you click with, yeah, I
Yeah,
do believe that. I
right.
do believe that.
They like, they add that sometimes in love, I love you because I experience a part of myself that you unlock a part of me
Yeah,
that I've never found anywhere else, right?
yeah,
And that's why we cling together. That's why I cling to you. That's why I'm here, because to have you is to have this missing part of myself that I didn't even know I was missing,
yeah.
right? And
And
if
I think
not
that,
that,
yeah,
then it's a thing.
yeah. And I think that's why when you asked me about love for me, I think that the love that I was giving to my ex-husband, my second one, like, it was just pure love.
Mhm.
Like, cause he ain't have nothing,
Mhm.
to be honest. I'm the breadwinner. Um, there were things that just he had to learn. Like, it was so many layers there. And so I've locked those things away. Like, I put them away. I put them away. Like, okay, if someone really does want to be in a relationship with me, we're gonna have to dig deep, and and he's gonna have to unlock it in a different kind of way
Yeah.
and understand where I'm coming from.
Mhm.
Because if if I'm having conversations with you and you're talking about someone will choke you, and I'm telling you like, no, we're not doing that, and you still keep going, you're gonna talk your way out. We're just not doing that, bro. We're just not doing that, okay? So,
Absolutely hilarious to me.
I mean, I laugh at it now
Yeah.
because
No,
I was
no, no.
like,
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. So let's talk about the book. All right.
okay,
We got a few minutes left. Um, the utility of writing is a lost art, first of all. And so thank you for a book.
Thank
Um,
you.
I use the utility of the memoir for me.
Hmm.
And this is memoir-ish,
Hmm.
but it's the format of it is a guided journal.
Hmm.
You're an English teacher. Talk to us about the guided journal and why you wanted to use this format to engage.
Um, as a teacher, the lost format, like you said, of writing and having a tangible book. I work at a paperless school, so they're always on the computer. But I have them do like a guided journal because, first of all, we got kids that just go through so much, and so I was sitting there right while they were writing. I was writing in my own journal, um, and it was more like people are really going through this, and you have no clue, and so I was like, I can give them an assignment to do to write out what they're feeling because they don't have an outlet to actually write about their deepest hurts, about their deepest pains, about their deepest connections and how they're grieving. Because my grieving for my first marriage is very different from my grieving for my second marriage. Very, very different.
Mhm.
Um, because I, the because of the trauma that was there.
Mhm.
Like I said, my first husband was a great man. Like it was just some things that was there. And I think that as women of church, we're always we unconsciously learn to love projects more than promises. So someone that feels safe to us is like, oh, this ain't gonna work. This just this is boring. And someone who's a challenge for us, we're like, I can fix him. I can make him, I can love him and make him change, and I learned that the hard way that I can't. Like, if you want to change, you're going to have to change for you.
Because
So
men don't get into relationships to fix somebody.
you said what?
We men don't get into
Oh
relationships.
yeah. Oh no, no.
We
Y'all
don't.
get into a relationship because
We,
y'all want a relationship. That's
yeah,
what you want.
we don't come into it. I'm here to fix you or anything
Yeah.
like that. We don't marry projects.
Yeah. We go into it like, oh, because that was my thought. Oh, well, we're having a baby girl. He'll change for that. Oh, mm-mm.
Mhm.
You're going to change because you want to change.
Yeah.
And so this guided journal, that's why I had to make sure that I put a guided journal, because you
Mhm.
are going to write in this book.
Mhm.
You are going to um lay your deepest things or issues here and recover with the blood. That was the let me see. There we go.
Mhm.
Um with the blood, because I felt like I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this marriage, and I really wanted it to work, especially having a baby. And I want her to be in a two-parent home, but I don't want her to be in a toxic two-parent home. So I had to come to grips that she could be in a single parent home and to be a healthy one. And
Mhm.
so I'm relearning some things about parenting, you know and so this is why this book is my baby.
Mhm.
um because people, when you write, it's a known fact that when you actually pick up a pen and write, you think. It helps you study. That's a study tip that you can do, and it just helps you remember, because you're a kinesthetic and an auditory and a visual learner, so you're doing all of those things as
Mhm.
you're writing. Sometimes you're talking to yourself and you're writing it out loud. You hear it, you
Mhm.
see it, you feel it.
Mhm.
And so that's why I did the guided journal, and I call it recovery, because I am in the recovering state. I'm at the end of it, because I don't feel like we should live in recovery all the time.
Mhm.
um but this is years of, if you go back, if you read it, it's some journal entries from 2015 in here,
Mhm.
um up and all the way up until 2021.
Mhm.
And so, but there's more that comes from that. And
Mhm.
so I don't want to be in a state of recovery all the time. I want to be at a space where I'm in a smooth, you know 10,000 feet. I can walk above and move
Mhm.
around. So
Mhm. So I recommend you all get it.
thank
It's a
you.
wonderful, no, of course. It's a quick read, but
Yeah.
the exercises in it and the promptings to write in it, I think is a um a wonderful exercise. To write, you said, and I'm paraphrasing, is to reflect,
Yeah.
right? How have you reflected, because you went through a divorce?
Hmm.
Um, during a global health crisis,
Yeah.
right? And we were isolated in ways that we have never experienced before.
Yeah.
And so how has the pandemic and everything that's been going on along with the pandemic, we had to be black in America and
Right.
George Floyd and all the like. How do you think these last 2 years now has changed you?
I'm no longer in a space where I'm going to waste my time.
Mhm.
Um, and what I mean by that, that's whether it's at a job, um, in a relationship. If I want to move, I'm gonna move. If I want to buy a shirt, I'm gonna buy a shirt. But also coming to a place, being a mom. This is why I did this. I wrote a letter to my daughter in this book
Mhm.
because I don't ever want her to experience this kind of pain.
Mhm.
Um, and I would have to get real, you know, dig deeper with her with that. And so this has changed me where I'm no longer extremely loyal to work because I've started I've started several businesses in this pandemic, actually. Um, and learning that I can have multiple streams of income, I can be successful, because just being at a space and doing it right. I went to school. I got 3 degrees. I got married. I had a baby. I had a house, and I lost all of it. Like
Except for the baby, you still
except
got
the
her.
baby, except the
Yeah,
baby.
right,
No,
right.
exactly. Except, well, people know Ariel. They know if they follow me, they know
No, I
that.
just want to.
Okay,
They're like, where's
y'all
the
know that she's
baby?
alive and well. But I'm saying I lost the relationship of having that two
Mhm.
parent home,
Mhm.
and having all of these things, and so I'm learning to deal with me more. I'm learning to listen and not to respond because I've always been a person where like I always got to have a response in a relationship, and so I'm learning to listen for clarity and not to respond. And so now I'm at a space because I started practicing it with my friends, and because we do what we call best practice in teaching, where I'll ask my friends if they're telling me something. I'm like, so do you want a response or do you want me to just listen? And when they tell me like, okay, I want you to just listen. Okay, here we are. Let's go.
Mhm.
And if they want a response, then I'm there to listen to them in order to respond properly. So I've learned a lot about myself. Just being again, being a mom changes you completely.
Mhm.
There are just certain things you're not going to put up with, um, and do with people because now I have a second heart that I'm protecting.
Sure. Sure.
So
Okay.
just becoming an entrepreneur and
Mhm.
actually doing it because I think sometimes we want to do this, we want to do this, and we never do it.
Mhm.
But when you have a force behind you that you have to do this, I
Mhm.
have to do this because I need to leave a legacy for her.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. This has been wonderful. This has been great. Before you go though, I have 5 quick questions. Everybody has to do this before.
Oh God,
All right.
you didn't prep me for this, but okay, go ahead.
Well, let's rack them up. Let's play. Um, First question. Do you believe in heaven?
Yes.
Okay. Next question. What do you know now that you didn't know then?
What do I know now that I didn't know
Then.
then? As in,
Before, before. What do you know now?
uh,
You didn't know
about any subject.
before? Yeah.
It's okay not to be okay.
Mm,
It's okay not to be. Therapy is good.
that's great. Next question. What is love?
Kind, forgiving, boundaries, um, a conditional, a conditioned, unconditional situation, if that makes sense. Which are boundaries. We always say we're unconditionally loving, but no, unconditional means you really ain't got no boundaries.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna love you in spite of your craziness. But no, we need some boundaries.
Okay. Where do you find joy?
Singing.
Okay. And if you didn't know, she's an amazing singer-songwriter. On top of now, she's an author. And by her clothes, she is in a gang. Last question. What has changed about yourself during COVID?
I love me more. All 5'9" and however many pounds I wear that you'll never know. I love me because I didn't love me enough in the frame that I'm in. I didn't used to like this girl. Now I love this girl. It's too many people that I've lost in COVID. And one of my best friends I lost in COVID. And I was like, he didn't even turn 40. And I'm still grieving that loss. And he was one of my best cheerleaders. And so I love Kristen more than anything now. And that's why I say 2022 is dedicated to me. There are some goals that I want to reach in my health, you know, for me, not to say, oh, I'm gonna look good for this person. I'm gonna look good when I go to this state or this country or whenever. I love this girl.
Good. I love you too.
I love you, Patrick.
Thanks for being with us. Tell us where we can find the book.
You can find this book on Amazon and look it up by just Recover by Kristen Webster. On my Instagram and Facebook.
Where can we find you on the
that would be Chrissy the Singer or Sanga, Sanga.
Of course it is.
On IG, and then Kristen Webby, Webbii on Facebook.
Are you on Twitter?
But I don't really do Twitter like that. So it's Miss Kristen to you on Twitter. So
Kristen Webster, everybody.
I feel like we just cut it out.
No, thank you for coming. It's a great read. Check it out. It's a guided journal, and we all need more journals, right?
Yes,
we all need more.
And it's not long at all.
It's a quick read, but it's so good. It is so good. So thank you for knowing how to read and write, and you know how to alliterate and all those things. It matters. It matters.
Listen,
you've done it so well. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
And so please go get my friend's book.
Thank you. Yes, please go get it.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for this.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Talk to you all later.
All right. Bye, guys.
Conversation. Talk to you all next week.
All right.